talk a little bit about the POA. A lot of you know me, a lot of you don't. I see a lot of new faces. I don't get out and about. As a president, a lot of my work is of a morning on a computer, answering many emails, sending out stuff to abstract companies, stuff like that. Just basically answering questions, doing reports. And that's what I do mostly as a president, okay?
Thank you for doing what you're doing.
First of all, I have been the president of the association for 14 years, okay? And a lot of times, most of the time, it's been pretty good. You know, we've only had a few, until this last year, we've only had a few controversies. But I want to bring a little history that a lot of you don't know about the POA. When this POA was formed, it was formed by a lawyer out of Houston. The guy was a conniver. This POA is one of the largest POAs in the county. We have over 700 lots, over 325 property owners. So you can see the amount of work that's done, you know, sending out anything from invoices. But when this POA was first started, Thompson, I think his last name was, he wanted to sell lots. That was his whole purpose, was to sell 700 lots. So what he did was, he used our deed restrictions, which are stupid. There's no way they could ever be. So what happened was, he used those deed restrictions as a marketing tool. And we have lots, I don't know if y'all realize, we have lots for people in Kansas, all over the country. People bought these lots. It was kind of like you heard about the old swampland in Florida. And when people seen the price of the lots, and they saw all these deed restrictions, my gosh, this is going to be a high-rise place, they all started investing, okay? Once he sold those 700 lots, he didn't care. He never enforced the deed restrictions. He never did anything to the subdivision except for collect $48 a month maintenance fees, plus the sale of the lots, okay? Then after he did this for about, I think it was 8 or 9 years, then Dave and a couple other ones got with him, and they took over the subdivision, okay? They formed the board of directors, and they wrote the bylaws and everything as you see now. And then again, they had some controversies. We didn't have that many people in the subdivision at the time. So therefore, and the deed restrictions were silly. So now here's what we're faced with. In order to enforce a deed restriction, which, believe it or not, I would say 85% of the properties here are not within deed restrictions, if you ever actually read the deed restrictions. I'll give you an example. How many of you live in trailer housings with metal siding? If you look on the deed restrictions, it says siding must be masonite, there can be no metal roofs or corrugated roofs. So if we start enforcing deed restrictions, where do we start at? Who do we start with? We start with them. And each deed restriction has to be enforced separately. In other words, like if somebody wanted to sue me for deed restrictions, you have to take me to court. The starting price is about $4,000 to get an attorney. And then what's going to happen is, in most cases, if it's over 4 years old, that judge is going to grandfather it. You think a judge is going to make some elderly lady say because your trailer's got metal siding you got to leave? They're not going to do it, okay? And then a lot of people understand, what is a POA? A POA is not about parks and pools and all that. A POA, a lot of you don't realize this, that Polk County, anything outside the city limits has no zoning and no restrictions. If we didn't have a POA here, anything could go, because that deters it, because they will not fight with an active POA. I'll give you an example. I own 10 cleared lots, all along Harmony Drive. There's power and everything there. I figured out just last week I could put 30 mini houses on it. And that's what they're going with now, a lot of low-income mini houses. So if I did that, 2 other people did that, could you imagine the traffic you would have in this subdivision? That is what a POA really is about, okay? It's kind of a safeguard so you don't have the traffic. And of course, with a lot of this, more people, comes the theft. A lot of you don't. I might be able to afford a 6-foot high fence up around all my property, but a lot of people can't afford it. that you're gonna get broke into, I'll guarantee that. There's only about 2 subdivisions in Soul County that does not have a POA. And go down to them, I'll get you the names, you'll drive through them, there. You think ours is bad? You'll see 5 or 6 tar paper shacks on one lot. You know what I'm saying? The theft is outrageous. I don't know if you've ever tracked this or not, but our theft rate in this subdivision, talk to the sheriff's department, is one of the lowest around. Even Cedar Point has a worse theft rate than what we do. You know? And I don't know what the reason is. And you gotta look at our locality, where we're located at, right off Mangum Road. You could have anything in the world hiding in here that you would never be able to see, because it's easy access. You're always gonna have some theft. You're always gonna have a meth house. There's no place around. Cedar Point and Davis Woods has had a couple of them. Their POA fees are something like $300 to $500 a month, you know? So you gotta kind of look at that in what we have to work with. I hear all this, the board members didn't do their job because they didn't enforce the deed restrictions. What are you gonna do? You cannot go up to them and bully somebody. It's not gonna happen. You gotta take them to court. And at the tune of about $4,000 to $5,000 each, we can't afford that. Okay? So you have to kind of live. The main deed restrictions we would enforce would be if somebody wanted to put in 10 mini homes on a lot, or if they wanted to move in 5 trailers on a lot. Those deed restrictions where it says single family dwelling is ones we would enforce, because that would benefit everybody. I can only imagine the traffic that would be in here if we had that. And it would, as the way Polk County right now, everybody is grabbing land around here, it's hard to tell. You could have a regular junkyard next door to you, or a pig farm, you know. You see what I'm saying? When it comes to deed restrictions, you gotta tread lightly, because who do you start enforcing them? Do we enforce the people we don't like? Or maybe we can enforce it with the elderly or something, you know? I mean, where would you start? Do you see what I'm saying? I've got a lot of people, they really don't understand what a POA is all about. Okay, this is not a community social club. We are registered with the state of Texas as a nonprofit organization. We are covered by corporation laws, state laws, our own bylaws. I've got 3 books at home that are total that thick of POA laws. And there's none of us that are lawyers. So I don't argue with somebody who says that's against the law. I tell them, get an attorney. Unless I know for sure that it's one. And like I said, I've been dealing with this for, like I say, almost 14 years. There's not a lot I haven't seen before. There's not a lot I haven't studied. You know, and it's like I said, most of the time until this last year, it's been pretty good here. We all got along. There was no problems, you know. Nobody had the law called on them. Nobody had the environmentalists called on them. In my 14 years, I have never called the police on anybody. If somebody's yard was trashy, I would send them a letter. And I only did that if there was a complaint from one of the other members, okay? I'm not gonna drive around and look for violations. It's not my job, okay? And as far as a president goes, the only time a president has any power whatsoever is at this meeting. Any other time you're a board member. Nobody is issued a throne and a crown here, okay? Everything I do goes through the board. People talk about where's the money go and all that. I'm gonna hand out a financial statement in just a second, and you all can see. And I'm gonna go for it line by line. I'll also show you how many people we've got in the that we've got here that have paid fees, how many have it. And anything over about $1,000 we consider basically abandoned, because we'll never collect that money, okay? Most of them, if I reference the tax site, which I do quite a lot, you'll see they haven't paid no taxes in the last 4 or 5 years either. So that means eventually it's gonna go up for a tax auction, okay? Like I said, there's a lot of moving parts here. You take and you'll see when I get to financial, I subscribe, which I pay for myself. I subscribe to 3 background check places, okay? And I do that, been verified and white pages, and I forget what the other one is. And I spend about $40 a month out of my own pocket. That's just the satisfaction of running, so I know what's going on within the subdivision, okay? When I first took this subdivision over, there was no way to contact the board of directors. There was no telephone numbers listed. The only way was to write a letter to Post Office Box 1356, and hopefully they would get back to you, which they usually do. So when I became president, first thing I did was I established a email, which all I did was I paid for AOL, I still do. All I did was assign the POA, FRPOA 3, another screen name, so I could talk to people, and I put that out, okay? I did that. There was no web page. We put a web page together a long time. It may not be perfect before it was required, but it's got the necessary on it and a spot where we could communicate with people, so we knew. And I've always said, anybody that's got a problem, pick up the phone and call me, okay? You know, I'll do the best I can, which I always have. At least I thought I had. There's a lot of people don't understand about what's happening in this POA.
But you know,
I remember when what?
something about it is your attitude.
Sometimes it is, but I'll tell you where my attitude.
No, most of the time it is.
Let me tell you the reason why. Where my attitude is. A lot of it comes from a person's background, okay? First of all, I spent 30 years in the Marine Corps. I'm not used to talking nice. I also worked at a prison pre-release center. I worked at a juvenile for a place for disturbed juveniles, and I also worked for the prison over here.
Okay, but you, the president, you should be able to speak to people without yelling at them, screaming at them.
My voice is naturally loud, okay?
No. There's a difference.
What? So I apologize. You know, nobody's ever told me that before. You know, most people just realize who I am.
Nobody's told you this. I kind of think that's hard to believe, first off. Second off, I just asked you, I was like, you came over here and started yelling at me, telling me that you gonna call the cops on me.
I get excited.
That's not excitement, that's rude.
I don't care. I'm not going to argue with you. See what I'm saying? This is why I get the way I am. Jimmy, I want to talk to you. You're not even supposed to be here. Okay?
The thing is that you don't know me. You have never come and introduced yourself to me or my husband.
I don't introduce myself to anybody.
This neighborhood doesn't even know who you are. You should, as a president, you should be going.
Remember what I told you? A president has no power except for at this meeting.
That's why.
But still,
That's why she doesn't know.
you should be going around and do something.
What's that?
That's why she don't know you. She hasn't
Bring
been
it on
here.
with me.
Oh, I know of you.
And you know of me from who? And who did you hear from?
I talked to you on Facebook. You called me.
Anybody that has seen
First of all, I don't
you
like this.
or him on Facebook and has heard the way that you've spoke to him or Richard,
Same way y'all are talking now.
it's provoking. And y'all keep doing it and you never stop doing it. It's very childish and you also need to learn to spell. It's ridiculous. And now you're up here acting just the same way, like y'all never graduated third grade.
I asked questions. And
I think you should just, like, walk away.
Like, really?
First of all,
I just asked questions and all of a sudden I get
first of all,
slammed.
like I've always told you, you're not a property owner. Your name is not on a deed.
We're all talking.
Well, that's the point. Is that I ask questions and all of a sudden I get.
It's the way you ask them. It's the attitude, the aggression that you're asking.
I just asked a question. Where is all the money going to from the dues? So when my future dues come up, I like to know where it's going to. And I didn't get nothing.
We'll give you,
You're quiet, we can get to that point, but nobody will control themselves to where that we can move on to that point. He's already said, once the meeting starts, he will show everyone that
No,
information.
this is now. But the point is, I'm
Why
trying to
isn't
get
Jimmy
his
around here
attitude towards
if
other
he's a
people
property
is kind
owner?
of.
how come there's a lot of other people I don't have a problem with at all, okay? They're just going with the set,
There's
okay?
3 people here got a problem.
But anyway, it doesn't really matter.
A lot of people that talk about that.
This, but if you ever get on the board, a lot of you realize this can be one thankless job, okay? We don't get paid for this. We don't get paid for the hours that we work and the things we put in. You think about that, it's volunteer, okay? Okay, that's all I wanted to talk about a little bit was the background of the POA, and hope you understand about deed restrictions. You cannot go bully anybody. You cannot call the law on somebody, and what's been done in the last year. The environmentalist, he won't even come out here anymore. In fact, I questioned his, last time I was out here, I questioned his authority to get a POA. Okay? But he may not come out here. the meeting's open. First thing I wanna do is hand out this is our expenditure report. Sure. I don't think I made enough for everybody. I'm gonna go line by line and let you know what exactly is in it. Everything is going.
I know, but I never would have thought it would. I know, I have to fight it every simple
In other words, that's a lot.
There's a lot more to it than that.
I went to the Facebook and I understand it. I could take that, they said the appraisal can go up. But I don't know.
Yeah, he's on the one there for 3 or 4 years.
You guys share?
So his other somewhere but it's nowhere near.
Anybody else want a good sports
Nothing
didn't
inside,
get one?
it's just a shell. I'm not totally on anybody's side. I don't get into politics, but I will listen to both sides. And these guys here, you're making make sense. They may not have been everything perfect.
You should want to, not on television, not on
This is not a high-end
Okay, this is our, what's called our financial statement. It is also basically our budget for the next year.
That's mental. Mental health is not right.
As you can see, as of March 31st, we had $14,547.
He's okay. He's a real nice guy.
We had no cash receipts, nobody paid cash. I don't accept cash. I had in the past a couple times. Our total maintenance fees for everything was $11,000. That's what we collected. That's equivalent to 12. So as of March 31st, we had $13,969. Now, that went up because we've received in the last couple of weeks quite a few, probably another $300 to $500 in maintenance fees for the So I mean, we're about average in what we normally do with the amount of people, and I'll get into it in a little bit. It clear up the misunderstanding about how many people that you've got that actually pays maintenance fees that have not abandoned property. Then the barbecue last year was $49. And that was just for potato salad. I bought the brisket, so it didn't cost anything. We've got our annual rental of a PO box, $156. That just went up to $188 as of yesterday. Then for the Christmas party we had, the board did authorize $100 for that little party. Got your office supplies. Here's regular check, deposit slip printing, $141. Non-profit periodic report that I have to do. That's only $5. We printed the annual meeting newsletter, $48. You've got printer ink and supplies, $133. Then we pay $300 a year for the county deed site. And what that is, we go on there, we have no internet. What we have to do is, I go on the county deed site, and it shows me an update who owns the property. I can even print you off the deed on that site, if you lose one.
I thought that was free.
No. No, not when you're a POA subscribed to it. Like I say, it's, total office supplies was $628, okay. Pavilion exterior paint supplies. A lot of you didn't realize this, in about 2 weeks before the meeting last year, we had this pavilion paint, okay? And the paint and everything, it cost about $900 for everything. In fact, it actually cost a little more than that, because the person did it didn't have a spray painter. The spray painter, I wanted one. I thought it'd be better if it was spray painted on it, so I went out and bought one. I still got it in my garage. I'll probably haul it to the dump in a couple of weeks. I'll never use it again. But it did a lot better job at filling in the holes and stuff than trying to roll it on. Especially when we did it last year, it was hot. We bought the playground equipment. It cost $1,099 for that. The help of Richard and a couple other people, we put that together. Yeah.
In the vote, that playground equipment was
Right,
$2,055.
we found a cheaper place to get it. Yeah. So we went ahead and went for cheaper.
We could have done that.
I just don't understand why.
Yeah,
We didn't discuss
I
it.
think that would catch your eye because you knew what we had originally asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, $2,000. I said it's only $1,000, you know, but we found the same thing. The same thing.
He is a board
I'm a
member.
board member and nobody told me anything about it.
I'm sorry.
The lady in the back is asking a question as well,
But
Terry.
of course, pardon me,
She's asking a question.
who is it?
Why is it like this, not something bigger for all the kids?
Reason why is, I'll tell you the reason. Okay, first of all, when you put in playground equipment, you gotta watch your age limit. Because if you put it in there for kids who are 12, that are kids 12, 13, people come in from other subdivisions and they'll destroy it. I know it, and most of those kids probably are too big to be younger than equipment anyway.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, besides money on that, you also spend money, you know, on something bigger like slides, swings, and, you know, because to me, not having people go
No, I'm just funny.
I understand what you're saying, you have to use the
but logically thinking, logically thinking, besides my and not like swings and like slides or stuff like that, you know, updating on the
It's we made it a better time, we just had to do something.
not think about the rest of the kids.
There's only what, I bet there ain't more than 20 kids in this whole subdivision.
When you come to the bus stops,
I go to the bus
there's a
stop.
lot
Last
of
week I
kids.
went to the bus
I mean,
stop.
there's at least 10 to 12 kids out of this bus stop every morning. That's not including.
I know.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
And it
there's
may
a lot
come
of
at a
kids.
later time, you know what I'm saying? We just-
It just,
And ever since we lost the pool, we put a playground.
yeah, well, I understand y'all want to do better, but it's just, you know,
And you also
y'all should have
gotta
done
watch,
logical
you also
thinking.
gotta watch what's daily got. You gotta have a lot of reserve.
Like you just said, y'all want to spend $2,500. But it's still, so that's what a plan too is probably gonna. What's
That's really. Back on playground, we got here. And of course, when we lost the pool, I'm gonna clear some things up about it too. It was brought up that, maybe if we had insurance, it would have been covered. We checked on that, there is no way. That pool was over 50 years old. I personally have patched it every year for the last 5 years before. I drained the shower in and patched it. It was leaking so bad, James, you can attest to that. How much water did that pool leak out every day? Our water bill was right around $300 a month because the water was leaking out.
So I understand not buying playground equipment for the older kids.
it's fine.
Absolutely.
So is there anything that the POA can look into for the older kids? Like we have the basketball court and it's quite small. Is there any way we can look into maybe expanding the size of that, putting up a new basketball goal, a volleyball net, something so that the older kids have something to do when
Well, I agree
they
with
come out this
And
direction?
what I'm waiting for, and I always ask, if anybody has any ideas, let me know. Just like the playground, and we will act on them. You know, I thought about, just the other night, I was sitting there drinking a cup of coffee, and I said, I wonder if a soccer court with a couple soccer nets would work. I don't know, you all got kids, I don't know.
If a covered pavilion, like, so we have this covered pavilion, a covered pavilion with basketball court underneath, something that even on rainy days, the kids can go out. So something along those lines, I understand that's a huge expense, but something along those lines that the older kids can do. 'Cause this one's, I mean, it's great, and we've utilized it, but
See, I have
we could use
I have
something.
I have to get this information to you because I don't have it.
I get it.
Mine are old. I've got great grandchildren, you know?
So there's my ideas.
Hey, it's good, yeah, but just send it to me, you know, or whoever it is, send it to them, I'm sure they'll act on it, you know? We're not really negative, people think we are, but we're not, you know, we can't come up with all these ideas ourselves.
Because I know a pavilion will be very expensive.
It will be very expensive,
Very
but
expensive.
it could be utilized for so many things.
If
Events
we have-
here at the POA for, I mean, we have
If
this, but
everybody paid their maintenance fees, I mean, if Barbara pulled all the records the other day, if you look at it, if everybody's caught up on their maintenance fees, we would have over $110,000.
Yeah, you're right, I'll give you the
We
breakdown,
could
give
put
you
a
the
new
right.
pool in. But we don't have it. People don't.
Yeah, and I got a feeling it's gonna get worse with these tax increases, there's gonna be a lot more people abandoning the property.
suggestions from, well, maybe we can improve on what we already have.
Yeah.
Something that's not quite.
Of course, we have to,
Delayed
remove the pool.
I haven't swum in a lake since I was 8.
And if you look here, see postage or invoices and all that stuff, these are just regular bills, $443. Professional fees, accounting, we pay a bookkeeper a whopping $200 a month. If you ever see what she has to do for that $200 a month, you ever input 300 invoices in, print them out, stuff envelopes, go to the bank, make deposits every 2 or 3 days? I mean, it's a lot of work. It used to be a secretary made 200 and the bookkeeper. Well, my wife was a secretary for about 10 years and she refused to pay altogether. But I kind of took it over and Barbara's actually the secretary also. And she does all that for free, doing newsletters. So people think, oh my gosh, $200 a month. That ain't nothing. I wouldn't even get out of bed for $200 a month. And she has been our bookkeeper for, what, 25 years? She is particular, I'll tell you. If she'll not tell you, we can't afford it. And actually, a lot of people don't understand, as president or a board member, no board members ever in a corporation have the checkbook. They don't do it. You always use an outside bookkeeper, okay? That has nothing to do with the POA. That way there's no ifs, ands, or buts, you know, and, she could actually have the power to refuse. Our checks take 2 signatures. One of them's mine and one of them's hers.
There you go. You contradicted yourself there,
What's
Terry.
that? Oh, what'd I say?
You contradicted yourself.
What'd you say?
You just said that you have to sign the check too, but you don't have the check.
I don't have, I have to go over to her to get one. Over in Alaska. And I have to tell her what for, and then I gotta make sure I bring back a receipt. You know, she was doing
2
it.
signatures. That's the way every nonprofit is run.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, people say, well, the board member should be saving their fees. That would never work. You could open up a can of worms that would, and that's why it's done that way. That's why when we look for a bookkeeper, we're gonna look for somebody outside the POA, you know? By the way, if anybody wants a question, that was my next expense. We had our records all audited by a CPA. It cost us $1,000. They went through everything with a fine-tooth comb. The only thing they found in us, we had a couple things mislabeled. One of them was, it was brought up last year, internet. So they said, oh, they're paying for my internet. but that internet was for has been changed to the deed site internet, what it is. We can go to the deed site. We don't have no internet. We don't have any phones here. Okay, that's why my phone number's listed on everything. And of course, we had some attorney fees we don't normally have. And I'm expecting more to be coming down the pipe. Okay? And of course, we got property taxes, $536. We had, what's that? We had some things in the subdivision we had to ask the attorney advice on, okay? It was dealing with individuals that, do the Privacy Act. I'm not gonna bring it up, okay? Okay, here we go. Refund of overpaid maintenance fees, $228. In other words, people overpaid. There are some people that do pay twice once in a while. We'll ask them, do they want a refund or do they want a credit? Usually we'll mail them back a refund. And of course, you've got your utilities. The pavilion and the common areas are separate as far as electricity goes. Okay, this one here gets a bill, and those over there get a bill. Okay? That's why you see one is $972, and that also covers 5 lines.
Why do some people, I'm not saying anybody that spoke today, why do some people want things done with the POA money, but they won't pay their POA fees to provide the money? And they go around talking to each other, telling everybody, don't pay the POA fees, don't pay the POA fees. That don't make sense. Well, it's kind of dumb. It's ignorant, actually.
I don't really get out much at night.
I don't know why
It's been out for a
that
while.
was said. The thought process behind that was,
What is this street again? It's a right.
last year,
Daisy, the
at this meeting,
Daisy.
we had a majority vote to remove the entire board. And he decided to just leave the meeting, just open-ended, just walk out and not conclude the meeting.
I don't mind if
Saying
somebody
he
from
voided
the
the
POA
meeting,
comes down here.
which,
I got a letter talking about something about that, yeah.
then we had another one in July where we pretty well had unanimous decision to get rid of everybody. And he still won't turn everything over. And so that's
Yeah, I
why.
kind of heard a little bit of bits and pieces about that. I've been a property owner here for 15 years. This is the first time I've ever showed up with more than 2 people standing here. I've never been to a meeting, is what I'm trying to say. And I probably never will again.
Are y'all unlocking the
This is
bathrooms and
just-
stuff?
I don't know what to say. People should work together instead of folks. It don't matter what he says. Some people are gonna disagree. And you may be one of them, so what? So what? It doesn't matter what I say either. I'm not saying that.
So my thing, I am one to disagree with them. So my thing is, COVID, we had special set of circumstances where we couldn't have meetings. So it was voted that everything be left the same for that year and we would pick it up the next year.
Yes.
He was supposed to roll off, Richard was supposed to roll off in 2020. Or I was supposed to roll off in 2020, Terry was supposed to roll off in 2020.
You're a board member?
Was. They removed me without any notice. And then
What was your title?
just a member.
Just a board member.
Yeah.
I mean, not just, but I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not belittling you or disagreeing
no,
with you.
no.
Why can't people talk like you and I are talking? I'm not on anybody's side, to tell you the truth, but I
Honestly-
listen to both sides. Both sides are coming up to me and talking to me. That means Jimmy and both these guys.
Yeah.
They're all talking to me like I'm nothing. I'm nobody. I don't get involved. I don't know why they're talking
When
to
they
me.
get into something here that's gonna maybe surprise a lot of
They're
people.
both sides are trying to defend their actions when they talk to me, and they probably talk to everybody that way. But I get caught in the middle.
I don't care who's in. I want them to abide by the bylaws. They voted themselves more time in without an actual meeting in 2020 when they said let's.
Well, 3 people can't throw their hand up in the air and elect a new president. That's not the way it happens, according to the bylaws.
Right. Exactly.
Okay?
And if you
And
don't
that's
have
what happened.
And if you don't have a meeting and you don't have minutes, you have no record of the meeting.
I was going to ask who's taking the minutes of the meeting.
No way. That's why I'm doing this.
We've had As of
Oh, hello.
yesterday, we got a total of about 160 of paid maintenance. 160 okay? We've got 224 that are not paid. And what we do is, anything over $1,000, we write it off basically as a loss, because they're not gonna pay. But it is most likely, these properties have been abandoned.
So anyway, when there's not minutes of a meeting, but they sit there and tell us, well, we voted on doing this, keeping everything the
So
same.
they're really
How
no
could
good
you
to
have
us at
voted
all.
on doing that?
The
If you
bookkeeper
didn't
wanted
have
us
a
to take
meeting,
them off
you
our
don't have
record, but we
minutes.
can't.
There's no record.
Right.
Do we have the numbers of
So
those?
then,
Do we have the
just
numbers
last
of
year,
Hell,
those?
even Alcoholics
Like how
Anonymous
many of
keeps
those
minutes
are
on their
there?
previous meetings.
Yeah.
I'm not an alcoholic, but I do know that for a fact.
so after everything went to crap twice last year, then they voted themselves more time.
Isn't it 3 years cycles? Isn't it 3 years?
It's 3 years, yeah, alternating, or some are 2 and some are 3, something
My
like that.
thing is, it's like the politics of this country. Why can't people just quit fighting with each other? He can say yes, they're gonna say no. They're gonna say no, he's gonna say yes. That's all they care about is arguing with each other. They're gonna disagree with each other no matter what comes out of the other person's mouth, even if they honestly agree with them. And support that thought.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you're one of them, but that's what's going on.
yeah.
Right here. I'm not talking about
Oh.
the U.S. government. I'm talking about right
Oh, I
here.
know.
This POA shit is, if I'm not getting involved in it, but if I did, I'm a lot more
So-
educated than I look like.
So-
I'm a lot more educated than I look like. And I'm going to show people what happens and what don't happen. And people run their fucking mouth, they get removed.
So what I want to
Physically
see,
removed from this neighborhood.
so what I want to see
I don't know
happen,
why they're being so nice.
what I want to see happen is I want to see the bylaws brought up to date. Our bylaws are very
I've read through
convoluted.
some of that.
They're
Some of it's
contradicting themselves on different pages.
nothing against the Bible, but it's like reading the Bible. That may have applied to life 2,000 years ago, but life's different today as a human being.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
It's just that's what's happened with the bylaws. They're so old and pertain to stuff that doesn't even matter anymore.
Exactly. And rather than working with everybody to come up with a solution for it, he sits there and says, well, you can't do this because you got to have the majority vote of all of the property owners, not just the ones present. And that's all in the way that the bylaws are written. But I know that they can be revamped and they can be brought up to date. We can write new
sure.
bylaws.
We could even pay somebody to do it for
It
the.
just costs money to do it. That's what it's going to do. And he's unwilling to have that conversation.
There's some issue that he probably believes. I'm not assuming anything, but he may not be able to do it himself. All the board members combined aren't able to do it themselves.
Well, we shouldn't do it ourselves. We can't do it ourselves.
Right.
We
You're
need
gonna
it
have
to be
to pay.
legally binding. You
Yeah.
know, we've got to
You're gonna
have
have to pay.
a lawyer to do this.
It may not, well, I don't know if the law requires it to be an actual attorney or an attorney firm, somebody work, and that's still legal under the attorney's license. But it's like talking to a paralegal that works for an attorney. The attorney's still going to sign whatever y'all.
Yeah.
That's legal.
But we need somebody that's definitely versed in POA law to write these things up
And there's some of them in this area that
There
are
are.
that are very much qualified to do
I
that.
would have had Travis Kitchens do it before he became judge, but now he's judge, so he doesn't practice. So.
Yeah, I liked him. I still like him. Is he still alive?
Yeah,
That
he's
kitchen